Welcome to the Georgene Rice Show podcast. This program was originally broadcast live on 93.9 KPDQ. We hope you enjoy the show.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Wednesday edition of When we return, we'll talk with Bennet Kelley. He's a cybersecurity expert. He's the founder of the Internet Law Center. He's also an attorney. We're going to talk about the newest worldwide spread of ransomware and how we can protect ourselves. That's coming up right after news and other stuff.
You're listening to the Georgene Rice Show podcast. It's aired on 93.9 KPDQ.
Hey, welcome back. You're listening to the second hour of the Georgene Rice Show. Glad to have you with us. Well, as you may have heard and may be following, a quickly spreading ransomware attack is hitting countries across the world, including France, Russia, Spain, Ukraine, and yes, the United States. Just weeks after ransomware attack known as WannaCry. Well, last May, the 12th to be precise, the world was shaken by the biggest to-date ransomware attack. But my next guest warns more ransomware attacks were only beginning due to powerful hacking malware leaking from the NSA. Well, joining us to talk about all of this is Bennet Kelley. He's a cybersecurity expert, founder of the Internet Law Center, and perhaps he can help us make sense of what's happening and what's likely to happen next. Bennet Kelley, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this it has been fascinating to watch, although that may not be the right word. Let's begin by talking about what happened on May the 12th that shook the world with the biggest to-date ransomware attack.
Yes, the WannaCry ransomware attack, which was massive. It hit numerous countries across the globe, shut down systems, and it was found to be a very powerful exploit that had come from tools that the NSA had developed, but which had been leaked and dumped on the internet. And so it had a devastating impact. And a lot of it centered on an exploit that was targeted at a Microsoft operating system vulnerability that a patch had already been released for, but many people had not updated their system and downloaded the patch.
So this is probably a good time to stop and make a commercial about taking the updates that are being offered. They're inconvenient. It's sometimes frustrating because things change after the update, but it's absolutely essential if you want to avoid becoming a victim of this kind of thing.
Exactly. I mean, there's so many times we're all working on something and it says, do you want to update your computer now? And so often we're like, no, I don't want to deal with this. It's important that you deal with those things promptly because often there are reasons, and this would be one of them.
Now, my understanding is the most recent attack had originated in Ukraine, where hackers first targeted the MeDoc, a tax accounting software company. Is that accurate? And describe what's happened most recently.
Sure, and actually, this is actually evolving quite rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
You're correct. It did start in Ukraine and focusing on attack software, and it has quickly spread to 65 countries, and it appered to be a very similar, using the same exploit. It's called the Eternal Blue exploit that the prior ransomware attack did, and it had a ransomware component asking people to pay $600. And it had a designated email address to pay it via Bitcoin. And but that address quickly got shut down. And as people have started analyzing this, the code of this attack versus the code of the May attack, they're seeing that there's some certain differences. And one is that the exploit didn't actually, there was no way to retrieve your files. So even though it said if you pay, you can get your files back, the exploit actually overwrote your files. And the other thing that they're noticing that, a professional, someone engaged in ransomware would not use one single email address as a means of distributing ransomware for payment, because then what could easily happen and did happen is someone could shut down that address. And so increasingly what's come out in the last hour or two, our people are starting to conclude that this was actually the ransomware component of the attack was actually a diversion. So it actually looked like it was a criminal activity, but increasingly some of the experts are saying this is a nation-state attack and that it really was targeted at Ukraine.
So that's my next question. What is the target? I know we're talking about places outside the Ukraine that have been attacked. So the target in Ukraine, what's the goal here, as much as we can understand?
if once you reach the conclusion that it's a nation-state attack, then all eyes turn to Russia, which has had a long history of meddling in Ukraine. Obviously they've invaded Ukraine, and they've at one point they hacked their election results, not the actual results themselves, but what the media was reporting it. So they 1 year they put their preferred candidate on top in the results from one TV station, although obviously the results were results and they hadn't changed those. And so this seems to be part of an ongoing campaign against Ukraine. But as you mentioned correctly, this wasn't just Ukraine that was affected. In the United States, major companies, Merck, one of the largest law firms in the country, DLA Piper, one of the largest advertising agencies in the country, WPP. In the world, I should say. And so it clearly it was spread to impact a lot of different actors, but it's looking increasingly like it wasn't just the act of random cyber criminals, but this was really something that was targeted to hurt Ukraine.
Now, some of these larger targets, what has their response been, and are they increasingly prepared for this kind of ransomware or cyber attack? How are they responding to what's happened and what's likely to happen moving forward?
So I know, for example, Merck reported that their systems were down for a short while. DLA Piper apparently went down. And what happens is the way to protect yourself, as you correctly noted right from the start, is make sure you have the updates. But the other thing is if you have a backup of your system, and so if you have that, then you can shut down and just upload your system again, and you can just go on with as if the attack hadn't occurred. And so that's the important component, and that I'm assuming obviously once you're attacked, you don't want to broadcast exactly what you did. So I don't know for sure what Merck and the others did, but that's generally how you would respond to the attack. What
about the virus protection programs that are currently available? Are they adequate? And I know a lot of people let that lapse. Is it really important to protecting your stuff, if you will, from this kind of ransomware?
Yes, the two most important things you can do. Well, three most important things are that is one of the three is having adequate one of the standard commercial Norton, Symantec, whatever McAfee, whichever you use, having something to protect your system to alert you of these attacks. That's critical. The two other ones are very easy. One is, as we talked about earlier, making sure your system is up to date and has all the requisite patches, and that's why often setting it to automatically update, while sometimes it does it at an inconvenient time, it's actually very valuable. The last thing, though, it's very critical, is that you be smart as a internet consumer or participant, and not click on links that are suspicious, that from people you don't know. And even if it's from people just double check the email address or if there's anything suspicious about it, because a lot of this comes through what is known as phishing emails, where it reports to be from Wells Fargo, but you look at the email address, it's not exactly a Wells Fargo domain. It may have like one or two things that are different, and so that's how they often get people. For example, the Sony hack, it was done by people clicking on something, a notice for a password notice that that really wasn't a legitimate one, and they just didn't look carefully. And once they did that, someone entered their password, and boom, they're in the system.
Yeah. They change your password, and sometimes they try to extort money from you, or worse.
And that's the other thing you do is regularly change your passwords, and that will protect you as well. Obviously, if someone has your passwords and you change it, then they can't use that.
Let me ask you about, because I've wondered about this. There are new entrepreneurs emerging who say, we're going to keep all of your passwords for you, so you can come to us and we'll collect and keep your passwords. Is that a safe way to manage the many passwords that are required to navigate life in the 21st century?
Except when they get hacked.
Yeah.
And so that's the challenge, is what do you do in those circumstances? And one of them recently was hacked. I forget which one it was. I know it was one of the major providers. And so therein is the challenge. So obviously there's a certain convenience to them. Some of them actually provide useful. They'll even formulate a password that is non-obvious, so that someone couldn't just randomly guess your password. If I know the name of your dog or the street you live on or whatever, I can sometimes guess your password. Some of these services would generate complex passwords, and that has value. But given that one of them was recently had a data breach, then you're as safe as those organizations are.
Yeah. So maybe a low-tech way of keeping that information, or move to the hills and just completely disconnect altogether might be good advice. I introduced you. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say I introduced you.
It's funny. Someone once asked me about that, and I said, don't be too alarmed. We don't have to all become cyber Amish. And then I discovered there actually is a group called Cyber Amish in San Francisco. So
may not be the answer. I introduced you as the founder of the Internet Law Center. My guess is some of our listeners are unfamiliar with the Internet Law Center, so tell us a little bit about it.
We're a law firm based in Santa Monica, California, that is focused on Internet law issues, particularly for those engaged in e-commerce and web development and online advertising. And we also help victims of cyber harassment and online abuse, such as this.
Well, I appreciate the time that you've taken to talk with us today and the work that you're doing. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Again, my guest, Bennet Kelley, is an attorney, a cybersecurity expert, and founder of the Internet Law Center. I guess the thing is we have to mind our P's and Q's, stay on our toes. Let's see how many other metaphors can I come up with, and maybe write your passwords down. I tell you, I just got a notice earlier today from my computer here. It's time to update your password. And I'm telling you, I just get the chills because now I have to come up with something else. And of course, you can't repeat what you just had or what you had 4 times back. You have to keep updating it. And, I'm trying to remember where my car keys are. And now I have to come up with a whole different password. So I'm trying to think, okay, chocolate cake, mint ice cream. I don't know what my next password will be. Or how am I going to remember that one from the one I had previous on this computer? And then the other computers that I also, my phone and my laptop at home. And so it's challenging. But it seems to me that a low-tech way of at least keeping track of those passwords and making sure those 3 things, he says, are essential will help you navigate this whole thing. Robust virus protection, update all your software, backup, and be smart about unknown attachments and links, which come to us all.